Hey guys, I hope everybody's having a fantastic day. Whether you're watching this in the morning, in the afternoon, or in the evening, I am glad you're all here. Today, I wanted to go through and look at, and again, this is very subjective. These are how knives make me feel, and I wanted to say all of my folding knives from when I started collecting to now, today being, I don't know, I think it's December 7th, 2023. What are my top knives in my collection? So I've seen videos if you could only choose 7, if you could only choose 5. I was going to do a top 10, and I think it's actually more like 12, but I couldn't leave out the 3¼ inch Spartan Harsey Plague Doctor in S45. I've also got the full-size Plague Doctor, which is a big knife in MagnaCut. But I love the machine work on this knife. I love the simplicity of the knife. I love the tooling of the knife. I love the fact that it's made in America. It's a little guy. For me, it's perfect for an EDC knife. And I had to put it on this list as one of the favorites up till now. And that is the little Spartan Harsey 3¼ inch Plague Doctor. And then, that's actually, we're not at a 10 yet. But then I couldn't leave out a knife that came in very recently that has just blown me away, right? This is a knife that I had no idea really what to expect when I picked it up. It was $310. I'd heard a lot about it, some good, some bad. I was not knowing what to expect. I took a chance on it. It's in Vanex titanium. It's the small drift, or the original drift, not the large drift. Fits my hand like an absolute glove. Is slicey as any knife in my collection. Carries with a very, very thin profile, is on washers, is quote-unquote rust-proof, rust-resistant. But I love this knife. It's really impressed me, and the quiet carry drift has to be on the top knives up till today, you know, in my collection. And with number 10, we come to a knife that, again, kind of took me by surprise because I've got an original Nimble, I've got a large Nimble, I've got a thick boy, I've got a Ronin, I've got a Alpha Front Pulse, I've got a relative. I love EMP EDC. After Blade Show 2023 and handling this Nimble T V2, I was blown away. I'm not sure if the OEM changed on this knife, but it is an absolute, to me, not just the blade shape, but it is a marked improvement over my original Nimble. But that could just be because, you know, all my other EMPs have been great too. But this Nimble T V2 comes in a strong 10 of the best knives in my collection that I really just absolutely carry, love, use, and I'm stoked to have. So moving on, we come to one of the bigger knives on this list. And this is my aluminum Microtech Ranlock Stitch. I was amazed by the things that I'd heard about this knife, the early renditions of this knife in FRN and G10, some of the limitations of the MSI before the Stitch came out. So I was a little hesitant when I saw this in stock. I actually thought it was the G10 variation and ordered the G10 variation, but was pleasantly surprised when it came in as the aluminum. Felt like I got a really good deal there. M390 MK, which is that Microtech Borka, however you want to look at it, version of M390, a little bit of a, I guess you call it a special formulation. One thing about the Stitch, it is, of all the knives that I've had come in from the factory, I would almost guarantee that the Stitch is the sharpest. This knife is scary sharp. A fantastic slicer, guys. It does not make noise as it separates that paper. And it's so pokey. I love this knife. It is definitely one of my top 10s. Again, a lot of these knives are surprises, very pleasant surprises that I didn't know what I was going to think about them. This one was one of those knives. I kind of expected it to have a clunky, lock sticky, hard to deploy action, and it's just the opposite. But this is the Microtech Stitch with Borka blades in aluminum and M390 MK. I love it. Moving on. This is a knife that came into my collection. It's the second of 3 Medfords in my collection. I have an Infraction, which was my first Medford. I got the Slim Midi, and then I got a Midi Marauder, which is this size knife, but just a little bit thicker. Early on, because it's so thin, I wasn't very good at getting it to open and close. I was having trouble accessing that lock bar. But I kept carrying it, and the knife kept breaking in. I actually put skiffs in this knife. It is an absolute joy. This particular one, I want to say, is a DLT exclusive and S90V. It's thinner blade stock, so it is very, very slicey. Not as slicey as what we were just cutting with, but very, very capable, very toothy. Very slicey. This is the falling leaves pattern. I love it. I've really grown to appreciate this knife, the way it fits in my hand, the way it rides in my pocket. If I had anything I wish better, I wish the clip had a little bit more retention, but as long as I'm not doing cartwheels, I'm going to be fine. So I think this is number 7, which is our Medford Midi Marauder. Coming in at number 6, which I'm very surprised this is not higher in our list. This is the Kunwu Pulsar. This knife is as good as a knife can be, in my opinion. It is as good as anyone needs. I could get by with just this knife and be perfectly able to cut anything I really needed to cut. It is the Kunwu Padre. It is in titanium. It is in, mine's stonewashed. I want to say it is Vanex. It has got some of the snappiest deployment, smoothest action. It's a top flipper, if you like that. It's a thumb flipper, if you like that. If you're like me and you dig middle finger flicks, it is an absolute gem. Has fantastic ergonomics, has a very tall, flat ground Vanex blade that cuts like a dream, and I just love this knife. I guess it's coming in at number 6, did we say? And probably could come higher. Maybe it's number 7. We'll call it number 7. Moving on, we come to a knife that I picked up almost a couple of years ago, but it's had a couple of very recent modifications. First with the black hardware upgrade, and then with a Zerk clip and a Zerk backspacer upgrade. And it's made me just rediscover this knife and start carrying it more. It is the V2 Jagger. The V3's getting ready to drop. Not sure if I'm going to get involved with that or not right away. I love this EDC Specialties V2. I love the fact that mine's kind of unique right now with the Zerk collars, the Zerk clip, Zerk backspacer, black hardware, black blade, M390 blade, titanium and micarta. Some of the best action. I got the Flipper Delete version and just really, really love this knife. So we're going to call this knife number 6. And that is the Jagger V2 by Brian Brown Knives. Number 5, this is an absolutely great knife, which just is a testament to the great knives that lay before it. But this is my McNeese Mac 2 3.5 in MagnaCut, USA made, right here in my state of Alabama. Some of the best action on any knife I have. There's not one thing negative that I can say about the knife. I like the clip. I've almost and probably will buy some blue hardware, a blue clip. I will probably also buy a rock stonewash backspacer. There are things that are in stock on this site that I think I want to eventually dress this knife up a little bit more because it is such a great knife. Hollow ground, magna cut blade that is just very slicey. I love the drop point style. Just a huge, huge fan. Missed out on the spear point drop. I was not paying enough attention the other day, but this knife is also available from time to time in a Tanto. And if I get a chance to pick up a Mac 2 in another blade variation, I will jump on it. I love this knife. Moving on, we will call this number 4. We have the Liang Ma Field Duty Folder, the 3.5 inch liner lock, Riot made. Met with a little bit of initial issues when it came in. This is the version I picked up after Blade Show. Liang sent this for me to check out. It is an S90V. It is in fat carbon fiber, or crosscut carbon fiber, I believe. The workmanship on this specific specimen is absolutely stunning. You've got this titanium blue matched hardware. The clip is reversible. You've got these beautiful carbon fiber scales. No transition between this nice tumbled bolster. You've got the satin S90V blade. Very snappy detent. Great retention. It's not going to fly out. The detent pops, and this thing cuts anything you want it to cut. So, as you guys know, my number one for a really long time has been the Liang Ma Field Duty EDC. I love the Field Duty folder, 3.5 inch. It's not at all too big for me. It's also a front flipper. I don't really do front flippers, but from a middle finger flicker or a thumb flicker, if that's your thing, it works great. So coming in at number 4 in my total knives that I love the most in my collection today, we've got the Liang Ma Field Duty folder. Moving on, we come to a knife that I wrestled with because, in all truth, had I not had a delivery come the other day, this would be higher on the list. This is my SPK Lamia, and it's the Friday the 13th drop from Friday the 13th this October in distressed black Cerakote. You can see the micro milling behind that Cerakote, hopefully. Has amazing lock bar access, amazing action, has this beautifully CNC ground blade that is just, again, crew wear, which is one of my favorite steels. Just super, super slicey. The profile of this knife is so elegant. It is kind of understated in its elegance and its simplicity. But what it makes up for in swagger, things like the SPK on the show side of the blade, the CW for the crew wear on the clip side of the blade. When I open this, both those markings disappear behind the scales. You see 100% sterile knife. Little things like that, guys, the details make the difference. And this knife is fantastic and really should be higher on this list, but the two in front of it are just absolute killers. But this is number 3 by a very close margin, right in there with number 2 and number 1, and this is the SPK Lamia. So moving on, we come to number 2. Probably one of the first over $300 knives I brought into my collection, and it's the G10 in titanium Liang Ma Field Duty EDC. To this day, has some of the snappiest detent. One of the knives that I carry as much as any other. Has a great titanium clip. Perfectly centered Elmax blade. I've got some skiffs for this knife. We'll have an upcoming video where we add skiffs, but I've never taken this knife apart. I've never tweaked this knife. This knife has stayed absolutely perfect from the day I picked it up. I just love it. I love the unibody construction. It's just an absolute wonderful, wonderful blade that's designed and fits my hand almost as well as a knife could. The Elmax blade has fantastic geometry, very, very slicey, and it's just an absolute joy. Still, after all these years and after all these knives that have been on the table that are all fantastic knives, that is my number 2. The number 1 is a new acquisition. I have had this knife in my pocket since it came in, which I want to say was 3 days ago. And this is the Evo 3.0 by CKF, Custom Knife Factory, and Rotten Designs. It was made available to me by Brother Carco. This knife is even more special, not only because it came from Brother Carco, but it has custom carbon fiber, Arctic carbon fiber scales put on by our own brother, Bill Pro-X. I just am speechless every time I open the knife, every time I close the knife, the way it feels in my hand. Again, guys, my channel is about how knives make me feel. I'm not the most practical purchaser. I'm not the most practical user, but I do me, right? And I've always thought, since I first got into collecting, that's all cutter air there because I'm looking through the camera. But since I first got into collecting, I've always thought this knife was super, super sexy. At every single knife show that I've been to, I've gone over, I've played with it, I convinced myself that it was too big for me, that I didn't need it, and it was successful. Then, my good buddy, A to Z, brother A to Z, he's the one who I unboxed the Shirogorov for the other day and who goes to knife shows with me, let me borrow his Evo 3.0 and carry it for, I don't know, I want to say he let me carry it for a week, 10 days. I had that and his Koenig Arius. And it was one of those things where I thought the Koenig Arius would have more of a lasting impact on me, but for some reason it didn't. What did have a very lasting impact on me was the Evo. So I'd put kind of the word out very selectively just to some friends that I was kind of interested in one, that I'd seen one that I might be interested in. And Brother Carco reached out to me and just really, really helped hook a brother up. So guys, I can't get them all in here, but these are my top 10. They're really 12 here, if we get down to actual meat and potatoes, that I have in my collection today. Will that change? It's very likely to. Guys, I buy knives all the time, trying to get into selling more knives, but I never do. I love you all. I do appreciate you watching my content. I do ask that you please look out for the guy or gal to your left. Please look out for the guy or gal to your right. Please look out for each other. Go forward with love in your heart. Choose debate, not hate. I love you all. Peace.